Hello everyone, my name is Hannah Girk and I'm a PhD student at the Australian National University. Today I'm going to tell you a little about my research on the movement, behavior, and personality of urban adapted eastern brown snakes. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet. I'd also like to pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Now I'm sure you're all familiar with eastern brown snakes as one of Australia's most well-known and perhaps infamous snake species. Brown snakes are both highly venomous and also very capable of exploiting urban areas, which can lead to some tricky situations. Here in the ACT, they're actually the most commonly encountered snake. However, urban areas are a very risky place for snakes to be, and urban snakes are constantly under threat from humans, pets, vehicles, and even our trash, as you can see on the slide. A common response for people when seeing a snake in an urban area is to call a snake catcher, who will then come and move it to a nearby reserve. For a lot of people, that's where the story ends, and they feel pretty good about the outcome. Unfortunately, recent advances in technology have allowed us to actually monitor what happens to wildlife after they've been translocated, and it really doesn't look too good for snakes. In general, snakes have small home ranges, and they're very familiar with where to find resources like food, shelter, and water within that home range. However, when snakes are moved out of the areas that they know, it can be very stressful. Many snakes show excessive or erratic movement behavior after translocation, which makes them more vulnerable to predation and to threats like humans or vehicles. It's also not uncommon for translocated snakes to move back into suburbs, which can lead to further human-snake conflict. In the end, some snakes don't survive being translocated out of their familiar home range. But we're really only beginning to understand the various ways that translocation affects different species and different individuals. So, our main question is, how does translocation impact eastern brown snakes? To address this, we will implant radio transmitters and mini data loggers that measure body temperature into two groups of snakes: resident snakes caught opportunistically at the field site and snakes translocated out of urban areas. We will compare snakes' survival and growth over a year-long period, track how far and how frequently they move, and measure their ability to maintain a preferred body temperature. This research is part of a broader program called the Canberra Snake Tracking Project, which has already conducted pilot research radio tracking brown snakes throughout the ACT. They've produced some great baseline data for comparison, but we've noticed, even within the pilot research, that there's a great deal of variation among individuals. My particular research will focus on snakes at one field site and attempt to identify some of the causes of differences in individual snake behavior. In recent years, research has shown that a variety of animals exhibit different personalities. Now, animal personality can be defined as consistent differences in behavior among individuals that are repeatable over time. It's often measured along gradients in categories like boldness, exploration, activity, aggressiveness, and sociality. Personality can affect survival, dispersal, habitat selection, disease transfer, reproduction, and many other key processes. Understanding the role that personality plays in individual behavior could help us predict wildlife responses to environmental or human-caused disturbances, and ultimately improve conservation outcomes. For that reason, another goal of this project is to see if we can measure variation in personality among brown snakes, and if we can, test its influence on movement or survival in the field, particularly in regard to translocated snakes. Now you're probably wondering, how do you measure brown snake personality? Well, prior to transmitter implantation, we'll take the snakes back to the lab, put them in a custom-built test arena, and measure variation in behavioral response to a number of tests. We'll measure general activity levels, latency to emerge into a novel environment, the total time spent exploring, and defensive behavior during a simulated attack, among others. We'll conduct 3 to 5 trials per individual and also measure the change in an individual's behavior over the trials, which has implications for an individual's ability to adapt to a new environment or its plasticity. After conducting the behavioral tests, we'll release the snakes, track their movement and survival over the next year, and test the degree to which personality plays a role. Our results will increase our understanding of what causes variation in individual snake movement and provide crucial insight into the ecology of a common but understudied venomous snake. If snakes varying in personality show differences in post-translocation survival or movement, it could potentially help us improve translocation outcomes and future management recommendations. The support of the Australian Wildlife Society will be critical in allowing us to conduct behavioral tests. Funds will be used to purchase materials for building the customized test arena, as well as cameras for recording snake behavior, so we really couldn't do this without you. I also want to acknowledge the support of our partners below and just say thanks for listening and stay tuned for future updates.